America didn't invent racial division by accident. It learned it under pressure. Before race hardened into law, something far more dangerous existed: cooperation. Poor European laborers and enslaved Africans worked the same land. They were whipped by the same overseers. They lived under the same debts, the same punishments, the same threats of removal. They fled the same plantations. They hid in the same forests. They resented the same elite families who owned the land, the courts, and the future. They didn't see themselves as separate yet. They saw the structure. That was the threat. In colonial Virginia, laborers were disposable. Land was promised, then withheld. Protection was demanded, then denied. The ruling class extracted labor and offered nothing in return. Resentment spread across lines that had not yet been sealed. In 1676, that resentment surfaced openly, not as an ideology, not as a manifesto, but as a shared uprising against power that refused to protect them, feed them, or recognize them. Bacon's rebellion wasn't chaos. It was exposure. Colonial leaders watched armed white servants and enslaved black people move together, march together, fight together, burn plantations together. For the first time, the ruling class saw the future clearly. If this continued, control collapsed. Because if laborers understood their suffering came from the same source, race could no longer be used to divide them. So the response wasn't mercy. It wasn't reform. It was redesign. And then, something new appears in the law. Not a belief, not a culture, a category. In 1681, Virginia law begins using the word white explicitly, not as a description, but as something the state must regulate and protect. This is one of the earliest moments where white enters colonial law as a legal boundary, not to explain society, but to control it. After the rebellion was crushed, the system didn't loosen, it refined. New laws hardened racial boundaries. European laborers were offered status instead of freedom. Whiteness became a reward. Blackness became permanent. Indentured servants were slowly absorbed into a racial category that came with small privileges. Enslaved Africans were locked into lifelong, inheritable bondage. Race wasn't born as identity. It was engineered as insulation. Privileges were reassigned. Punishments were racialized. Solidarity was made illegal. Not because unity was immoral, but because it worked. Bacon's rebellion taught colonial America a lesson it never forgot. If people unite across class, labor, and suffering, power becomes negotiable. So race was weaponized to make sure they never tried again. This wasn't the birth of prejudice. It was the engineering of control. And once the design was set, it didn't stay in Virginia. It spread. It hardened. It became policy. It became the blueprint.